Show. Today I'm joined by a good friend of mine, Brent Spilly with 3 L's, the $1 billion business coach. Say how's it, man? Welcome back.
How's it? How you, Matt Brown?
Dude, good to have you back here. I mean, how fortunate is it that, you moved back from the bright lights of Cape Town all the way to Joburg?
I've gone the wrong way, apparently. Everyone I meet's going like, you've gone the wrong way. I'm like, yep, back to Joburg.
Well, it's good to have you here nonetheless. So it's not your first time on the Matt Brown Show and in the hot seat.
It's my third time, and then you've done the spring surprise. Hey, you're live on the Matt Brown Show, like on a Friday afternoon a few times. Which
we need to
catches me off guard.
I know. I need to actually get you to send me like voice notes for a segment that we have on. It's a version of the show where we kind of do news and stuff like that. So with Jonathan, actually, who you met now. But yeah, Rich sends me some stuff. It's pretty interesting. It's
Rich,
like
the content machine. Hey?
Yes, like that X a monster. Eh?
Yeah.
Rich, if you are watching this, say hi. So for our audience around the world, Brent, who potentially haven't heard about you, maybe give us the elevator pitch. What are you about?
So I used to say things like, to really marketing, I used to be like, I'm your catalyst for success and catalyzing other guys' growth. And I used to believe that. What happened was a few weeks ago, interesting enough, is I had a session with a client I've had for years. And we did a group facilitation, and we do this thing where it's like superpower, kryptonite, two truths and a lie, like just the icebreaker stuff. So her team does it and did it, and then said, well, what's yours? And I gave them my BS, catalyzing other guys' success. And my client went, oh, that's bullshit. And I was like, oh, really? She goes, oh, no, your superpower is as follows. And she probably, I'm going to butcher this, but she was a bit more succinct, but she went, your ability to pick up on multiple conversations and multiple things in the world, collate the information, and put it together into a single story that's relevant to our business so we can move forward in a smart way with an informed global perspective is my superpower. And I was like, that's really interesting. And then she went, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I think that I kind of believe in that. But then I realized that what I'll do a lot of is sell perspective to business owners, so that get a sense of where you are, but perspective from an emotional perspective from a global economic, social perspective, trends, tech trends, risk analysis, patterns, the 7 years of the 7-year itch, that kind of pattern. So just really understanding what the sort of things that are going around and taking all the bits of information and turning into a single collated, meaningful piece of information. And I do that in order to catalyze business owners' growth and success. How's that for a shitty 1-minute pitch?
I like it. I'll tell you why I like it. I'm just going live on Twitter streams. My producer's shouting at me. But yes, I think perspective is a very important thing that business owners all actually need. So, okay, here we go. Mic's on. Here we go. So are we live now? Okay, God. Okay, we are live, I think. So yeah. I mean, perspective. It's that thing. I think it's what's the guy's name? The coach, the business brickyard, Howard Mann.
Yes.
So he said that thing. Like when you're stuck inside the bottle, you can't read the label
On the inside, yeah.
And I wrote about that in my book. And I think perspective is something that you pay for. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Because it's valuable. Because I do believe in what Howard's saying. It's like sometimes you're in the trenches taking grenades, and you can't see the wood through the trees. And so when you have someone that's as experienced as what you are, obviously because you consult to many owners across multiple industries and stuff. And how long have you been doing it now?
So October will be 10 years, so 9.5 years, full time.
So that's a lot of experience and perspective that goes along with that, And so it's...
And then my own previous experience obviously helps, and the fact that I'm pushing 50, a little bit of life experience now, I think. But I like your army analogy, right? Because you're in the trenches, catching and throwing back grenades, and that's obviously what's right in front of you. But then if you zoom out, think of it like a drone shot. What's happening around you, that influences the way you think about what's going on, coming up behind you. But then think about that war, what's happening behind closed doors on a different continent with regards to political decisions. So this perspective right from the Churchills right down to your to a pit that you're knee deep in shit and dealing with, you need sometimes that entire perspective as opposed to just what's over the hill.
Yeah.
So hopefully I try to give people that perspective as well.
But how do you trust your own perspective? So like, I know as a coach, like how do you, I mean, what sense of certainty do you have that, you know, this advice or perspective that you're, you know, imparting onto your clients is actually going to work? Because like, you know, Alon Ray said to me once, he said, you know, the more I work in business, the more I learn, unless I know. Yeah. So no one really knows the truth. You know what I mean?
The wise man knows he knows nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know, so how do you back yourself in?
So
in
a couple of things. So firstly, in pure coaching is non-advisory. Okay, I'm a terrible coach because I am advisory by nature. So what I find is that when I'm starting to dish out actual advice, often tell the client, okay, this is non-coachy. I'm giving you advice based on my opinion. And then often what that is based on is a length of period of averages. So sometimes it's very obvious, and I can give you 10 reasons why in case studies to prove to you what you're about to do is wrong. Don't do that. But often what it comes down to, a lot of the advice I give is right, like, oh, you need a process here. You need a step-by-step how to do this better. So I'm not telling you what the process is, but there's a lack of process. It's very clear there's a lack of process. Categorically, a process will make this better. Cock on a block, it will work. What your process is and how you embed your culture and steps and moments of magic, whatever that is, into it, is up to you. So there's a level I get to where I don't go, okay, when they throw the grenade in, pick it up with your left hand, not your right, and throw it over. I'm going, just throw it back. I don't really care which hand catches it, just throw it back, right? Because I know that's good for you. The low level detail, I trust you've got this.
Yeah.
So I try and not get into that level of sort of menial conversation.
So it's not like a hand-holding exercise for you?
It depends.
How much hand-holding does a business owner need, I mean, in your experience?
It depends. The answer is yes. It depends how long they're in business, as to how mature their business are and how mature they are. It depends what level of crisis they may or may not be going through, positive or negative. So I prescribe sort of a maturity curve of a business, and if they're immature, as in they're not old or young, but immature or mature, if they're immature, they need hand-holding the same way a toddler needs hand-holding because they don't know. And people often feel afraid to ask, but I'm kind of going, well, if you're a kid, you have to ask. Like, there's no way you're going to learn unless you ask. And it's not because, you know, it's not your fault you don't know. You just weren't taught it, or you weren't exposed to it, or your degree didn't give you that information. So sometimes it's very academic by nature. And then sometimes it's very borderline shrinkage, you know, like I often say to guys, there's a point where you need to go see a therapist, but there's a lot of stuff where it comes down to values and, you know, limited beliefs and stuff where it's like you can see constant patterns happening in people's lives, in their personal life and their business, and you just got to make them aware of it. And then go, you see there's a problem here? Cool, my toolbox ends here, go see a therapist. You see why you need therapy, that kind of conversation.
So two things I want to get into. One is, you know, getting entrepreneurs to actually ask for help in the first place, because I don't know where it comes from. It's like some kind of societal conditioning or some shit. It's like you think you can do it all on your own. But
wait, let's just split this, right?
Okay, go.
Men and women, very different.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So men, and I'm being obviously the general, right? Like generalist sort of stereotype, but men are very, you know, macho, masculine, patriarchal. Don't ask for help. Don't ask for directions. We do it ourselves, right? Like, we'll figure this out. I'll endure the pain. So on average, you'll find that women are way more open to asking for advice regarding their business and don't see it as a negative. They don't like, oh, don't judge me, but I don't know how. More often than not, right? There's obviously exceptions. Where men are kind of like, I've got this, but you know, I know how to do this. And they may recognize it as some kind of like, oh, you're broken. You need therapy for your business. Where when that comes up, and occasionally it does, I always tell the client, well, like, who's your favorite sports star? Tiger Woods, cool. Who's his coach? How many coaches has he got? And actually, he's got a lot. How do you think he became so good? Yeah, he's got talent. Sure, he's got talent. But someone's nurtured that talent, enforced it, motivated him, cucked him out, kept him getting out of bed and training every morning. There's a coach behind him, a series of coaches. What's different from running a business? You know, and why? And we all know this, like, learn from others' mistakes. Absolutely. And I think there's a plethora of places you can go to now for information. There's entrepreneurial organizations. There's hundreds of coaches. Some are good, some are bad. Some are methodical, i.e. like, here's the 10-step method. We're going to put you through this. It's right for some, not right for others, not the way I work at all. So I think that the big thing is, I think there's an awareness of the fact that you aren't alone. It is a painful journey. Ask for help, and everyone is getting help, and they're getting ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting, that insight, right? That men don't want to ask for help, and it's a weird thing, because I actually think, being vulnerable is a strength. It's not a weakness. I don't know.
Sound like Brene Brown.
I know, right? Be vulnerable, people. But it's true. I mean, I've had to learn to be vulnerable, even with my staff. When we've had major cash flow crunches. During we won during the initial year of COVID, and then the market went. So we had to let some people go, and it was really tough. And and so being vulnerable with your staff and going, hey, listen, we're fucked. This is the unfortunate reality. I mean, that it takes does take strength, which is actually a good sort of precursor to what I wanted to ask you. The second part of that, which was how much of your coaching is actually external business stuff versus internal, help the entrepreneur see perspective patterns, motivate, that kind of stuff.
So across all my clients, you're saying?
Yeah, like on average, what if you were to say?
I'd probably say that it's 60% process, products, people, profits, ratios, constructs, templates, frameworks. Those like the academic, because a lot of guys just need that, and they need that to actually hold up the psychology piece. Because what happens is that psychology piece has obviously got to do with who they are as an individual, their background, which auntie touched them badly as a kid, that kind of thing, right? whatever it comes through. But the fact is that a lot of the lack of motivation or the pain they endure is because they don't have a roadmap, some kind of strategy. They don't have a way to implement the strategy. They need very basic, for wherever they are, improvements to processes and policies. And if they have those things in place, their day is easier. And therefore, their psychology piece actually is less of a problem. So every client uses me differently. And I do talk about the fact that there are those that are 95% psychology, 5% academic, and then the other way around. And sometimes people, all they actually need is sort of strategic advice or a framework to run their strategy by. But I would say that it's probably a fair blend, almost even. Because I'm not a psychologist, I lean into the academics. So I look for clients that are looking for help with, how do I grow my business? So yes, your brain's got to be in the game, but actually you need a sales strategy and a marketing strategy, and then you need a sales conversion process, and then you need an onboarding process, and then you need an upsell process, and like you need all those things, and that's how you grow your business, right? Or one of the ways. You've got to get up in the morning on a Monday morning, be motivated. Obviously, otherwise all those things are of no use. But you need to have those things to grow a business. And often the combination of a really strong plan, good processes, a lot of grit, put in the hours, like do the work, will guarantee a lot more success than just, I'm super motivated. Like that's not enough.
Yeah. I've got this current idea, which is, motivation is fine until you get like punched in the face, or if something goes wrong in your business, and then suddenly motivation doesn't work out so well. So as an example, like we've, early part of Feb now, so, New Year's resolutions. So what we do is we sign up for the gym, we spend money on the latest pair of Nike running shoes, and then, we get some running gear, and like we're motivated, like we're fucking motivated to like lose those pounds, baby, that we put on over Christmas. And then it's cool for like 4 weeks, and then life happens. Like a kid gets sick, you get sick, something goes wrong, and then suddenly you don't go to gym for 1 day, then it's 2 days, then it's a week, and suddenly you're sitting with the gym membership that you don't use,
right?
And you're no longer as motivated as you were. So my sense is that motivation is actually not where the intrinsic, let's just say, I would say like where your source of performance comes from, right? So we all have potential that's equal, but if it when it comes to like the difference, let's say, between someone that's motivated versus someone that's either like obsessed. Like, okay, so you get motivation, driven, and then obsessed.
Yep.
So everybody's motivated until something happens. But then you get people who are driven. They can take a higher amount of shit from life and keep executing. And then you get the people who are obsessed, which are like, you know those people where it's like you mentioned Rich with content, the content, monster or whatever. Or you think about like, Usain Bolt or anybody that's achieved some kind of Olympic gold medal, like the Winter Olympics are on at the moment. Like those people are not driven. They're obsessed about achieving the thing that they want to achieve, and everything else comes second.
So can we, two parts, let's bring us back to the business, right? So the first thing is I saw this great meme, and it's a picture of Everest, and it goes, there are, I can't remember the number, but 23 dead bodies on the mount of Everest at the moment, right, on the top. Each one of those was a highly motivated person at one point, okay? But it proves that like you can be as motivated as you want, but you need the skills, the tools, the support, whatever else you need to get up and get down, right? So like motivation only gets you so far, number one. Second thing for me, and this is again, I think true for me, and we can unpack truths later, but I think that the guys that I know in my network or my clients that have grown genuinely, I think large businesses, the hundreds of millions of kind of rands businesses, and have done it as a owner from a startup to that point, they're lunatics. Okay, and
they're the obsessed people.
Well, they're obsessed for different reasons, right? So it's not a motivation thing. Okay, no, it is a motivation thing, but the drivers are incredibly powerful, and it's very rarely intrinsic. So intrinsic means ownership, pride, enjoyment, growth. These are the reasons I'm in business, because I love my business and I want to grow and I want to change the world, right? Those are intrinsic. And those give you a long runway, and they're powerful for some people, but on average, as you say, I want to be in better shape. That's a really good thing to do, difficult to maintain, right? The external is I'm single and I've got to look like, I've got to have a six-pack because I want to get laid in 6 months. That's an external driver, and there's a much better chance of you sticking to the gym for that than just, I want to be in better shape, I want to be healthier, okay? So what you find is that those guys that grow massive businesses, you can classify them as obsessed, but their drivers are often very unhealthy. So they're egotistical, maniacal lunatics. They try and prove a point to ex-wife, ex-husband, ex-boss, ex-teacher, mom, dad, one of those things. So what are the things that are driving them? Are generally unhealthy external motivators, incredibly powerful, right? Like, don't get me wrong. But what you tend to find is that they become so obsessed with one thing that they burn through the other thing. So the guys, I mean, we've read about Jobs and Musk and those guys, multiple relationships, bad parents, burn through friendships, like they burn through other things, possibly unhealthy to some degree, physically, in order to achieve what they've accomplished, right? So where's the balance? And for them, that's good enough. It's great for them. For others, they're looking for more life balance. And I think a lot of that life balance conversations come out of COVID. There's a lot more existential questions being asked around, why am I doing this? How much is enough? Those pieces floating around. So I think that motivation is great, but you need to know what the steps are. Like, I can buy you the best running shoes in the world and you want to get laid in 6 months. But if you run 10 hours a day in the first day, you're going to break yourself and you're never going to run again. So like, how do you do it? What's the plan? What's the ramp up?
Yeah.
And understand, what are you eating? There's so many things, right, that you got to think. So business is the same. Who you surrounding yourself with? But let's go back to the running thing. And this is, I laughed because of your January analogy. I fell off the bus in January, right? So I've been running like a lunatic.
Have you?
Lunatic. 4 or 5 times a week. And not tracking it, I don't wear tech, but I know that I'm doing between 5 and 10 Ks, 4 or 5 times a week. That's what I was doing. January, my life got in the way, right? Moving cities, just stuff going on, and fell off. And that's the excuse I've told myself. But then I realized one thing's really important is that in Cape Town, I had a running buddy that was on the same level as me, who lived down the road. So I'd run to his place, pick him up, and then we'd run a couple of meters down the road. And he was my accountability buddy. He was my running coach, okay? We pushed each other all the time. Where I got back to Joburg, and I have a crew here, but I haven't plugged in yet. So getting out of bed in the morning on my own was like, no, I'm okay, I'll just sleep in for an extra hour. And yesterday I did my first 10K, and there's a bunch of guys and was like, welcome back. We're doing it again on Friday. Guess what? Friday I'm on the road. So you need that accountability person sometimes. And in my coaching process, there's a big accountability piece. If you don't do your homework twice in a row, I fire you. All right? Because then I'm the wrong guy for you.
Yeah, I'm not doing your homework.
I'm not asking you to.
Sorry, dude.
Right.
I'm not doing it, man. But yeah, I mean, just to pick up on something you said, I think there's I've been asked twice recently on social media about this great resignation idea.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And to your point, people are like, my view is that people are waking up. There's this work culture in general. And I think with COVID and pandemics and stuff, people are, to your point, are waking up and going, hey, I'm not actually happy doing this thing. I want to change my life, or I want to work for myself, or like whatever the internal motivations are. So what is, in your experience, I mean, obviously you're talking to business owners every day, but what is driving this the great resignation?
So can we talk about this for two seconds?
Yeah.
Firstly, I want to frame this a bit, right?
Yeah, go.
So I want you to think of this discussion as a pendulum, and the thing in the middle holding the swing is employment, right? So it used to be at 9 o'clock, so at horizontal. This was our norm, okay? 9 to 5, go to the office, work for the boss in an office. COVID happens, pendulum let go, the ball swings, and then swung to 3 o'clock on the other side, the other extreme. To hell with this. I'm never working for a corporate. I'm never going to the office. All about me. Independence. Beautiful. But what happens to the pendulum is that it's going to swing back. Now, it's going to swing back down, and it's going to eventually find a place somewhere at the 6 o'clock mark in terms of a time, right? Which becomes the new norm. Everyone talks about the new norm. Somewhere in the middle between that extreme, which was our norm, and this overreaction of 20 million Americans in 6 months resigning and not going back to work, it's an overreaction. Part one. Part two, everyone's going, I want to be independent. I want to be a freelancer. I want to work on my own. I want to own business. Oh, really? You have no idea what it's like not to have your salary every month and what it looks like to go and find work and do all the other parts you don't know how to do. So I think what's going to happen is that this great resignation, the big quit, is going to be a pullback where a lot of guys within 6 months are going to realize, oh, I can't do this. I just need a job. And they're going to go back to getting employment. Now, whether that's in the office or not, different discussion. But I think there's going to be a new norm again, so not everyone going back. But I reckon more than half the people that have resigned at some point are going to go back to employment, part one. And then if you look what's happening in the UK, the headlines are the big return. Now,
to offices.
To offices, right? But with that comes the attraction of guys trying to bring talent with them, obviously. So I know that in the States, end of last year, there were, for the first time like in recorded history, according to LinkedIn, as far as I can remember, there were more job offers than people looking for work, according to status, which was like mind-blowing, right? I think that's going to shift again. So because not everyone can be small and supply small, and like that ecosystem needs corporate somewhere in that chain to survive. So I think that firstly, the whole big resignation, big quit thing is going to find a pendulum is going to swing back. We're going to find a new norm, part one. Second thing I do think is that there's been a skewed perspective of working from home. Huge pros and cons to it, right? The pros are the efficiency, the savings, the lack of time wasting, and. But there's also this realization that we do need, on average, social interaction, physical social interaction. And it's partly because what separates us from everything else, from a species, is our ability to communicate. And our ability to communicate is not just words, it's the physical language and the underlying body language piece. And I think people are now realizing that they've lost touch with that kind of interaction. And it's little things. It's just like, I get joy now. It sounds ridiculous. If I'd said this to you pre-COVID, this is what's going to happen to my life, and said to you, I find joy interacting with the barista while I order a coffee, you'd be like, I'm not a bad guy before.
I think you've spent too much time in Cape Town, bro.
I have, behind a desk in a room, right? But what you find is that there is the lack of interaction that people have had on overall. That's gonna pull people back to being more social in physical space. And I also think that people realize that their lives were a bit shit working for the boss because they had a better life working from behind a screen at home. So I think that there's a lot of that. Why am I doing this? What's the point? Again, how much is enough? But the the one other thing which I slipped my mind now, I want to talk about in terms of understanding the working for a boss or working for yourself, is that I think that people are gonna realize really quickly that the ability to produce money on their own from home is actually quite difficult.
So when they work for themselves, is
when they work for themselves,
what you're saying?
yeah. So I think that people want to be, freedom. Define freedom. Freedom is basically the option of choice. People want freedom, right? Okay, so they want the option of choice. But what they're going to realize is that those choices come with consequences, and you've got to give up something. And unfortunately, the likes of the Gary V's who glamorize independence and working for themselves, like that, hustle and do it on your own. I think people don't realize that it's, what's the saying? You become an entrepreneur, work any 16 hours a day that you want, as opposed to the 9 hours. Like it's hard work. And some guys are just built to be employees.
So, but I don't understand that though. Are you saying that working, let's just say Greg, Greg loves this show.
Yeah. Hi, Greg.
Hi, Greg. Thanks for checking in again. But let's say Greg wants to start a business. You saying that it's harder, starting a day one startup, first survival period, etc., working from home than it is working from an office? What are you
not
saying?
at all. What I'm saying is that I think that a lot of people think that starting a business, regardless of physical circumstance, is easy.
Uh-huh.
And I also think what's happened now is that if you look at the skills that have suddenly come out, it's predominantly like knowledge-based workers, right? Guys selling time in some form or fashion, right? So professionals. That independent market, think how many bankers have just left the banks, how many guys have just left the pharmaceutical industry, how many guys have left like those corporates. And now they're going to start little businesses with their skill set, start little businesses, because that's how we start, right? How competitive that bottom end is now going to be. So what you tend to find is that the guys that make these leap first is in any space is often the creative spaces, right? So the artists, the designers, the whatever those are the first guys to go, because they're more in touch with their emotions and they're a little bit more like in touch with whatever that is, life. So they bail out of those corporates sooner. The bottom end of the design world or the copy world or the illustration world or the basic WordPress or the basic social media, digital marketing skills is so incredibly flooded and competitive. And what that means is the price has just gone through the floor, super cheap. Now guys are going, I'm going to start my own business. I'm going, you don't know how to, and you're entering a space that is now the most competitive it's ever been in the history of ever. Number one. And number two, not only is it competitive, but now the world's working up to the fact that we can genuinely offshore these skills with comfort using Zoom, where before it was like, I'm not sure how that's going to work. Now it's like, we know exactly how that's going to work. Not only are you competing with the guys in your area, you're competing with Southeast Asia, Eastern Europe, South Africa potentially, because we're not exactly expensive.
Did you say South Africa?
South Africa, bro.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. I mean, I think there's definitely an expectation that it's easier than it is. I don't care where you are or what business you start or who you started with, like you're going to suffer. And it's a thing that I don't, especially first time entrepreneurs, they don't fully appreciate. They expect, 6 months in, you're going to be singing.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it's just like not true. You're going to be a broke ass bitch for like several years. And this is the other thing
on average, I agree.
I fundamentally, most entrepreneurs are broke. They are broke. You know why they're broke? Because when they start a business, especially to your point around, you're selling time and hours and it's services, it's not tech, can't scale, blah, blah. Yeah. You are reinvesting everything into people and processes and systems and things. So your OpEx goes up as marketing, your business grows and marketing and stuff like that. So, that process can take a minimum of 3 years of survival unless you somehow get lucky.
Sure.
And so like with Digital Kung Fu, we got lucky. We grew exponentially over a 3 year period.
Did you grow off one big client? Was there like one client that was the tipping point?
No, it was a whole bunch of clients.
Okay.
But one client helped us obviously start the process.
Right.
That's
an important thing is that people think that they have one client and they're now earning a salary out their business that they've got it made. And I'm going, you're at such a big risk. You need to get like another 4 or 5 equal size clients very quickly, right? Like eggs in basket.
Yeah.
But people perceive that as success, and that's not successful. That's like highly, highly dangerous.
Yeah, it's very dangerous. Like no one client should be more than 80% of your revenue or 40% or something like that?
Ideally less than 10.
Less than 10,
if they're more than half, you've got a problem.
Yeah. So it's a risk. And so my point is that you're not going to be rich. So when you read the headlines about this entrepreneur's, a billionaire or millionaire, whatever the case is, the first thing is, do you compare yourself? And by comparing yourself, it reinforces the expectation that I can achieve that too. Right. And in reality, like I said, we got lucky. Like it's not, it's rare to find a business, especially
and hard work.
And it's hard work, but especially a services business to grow exponentially, period. And what people and entrepreneurs need to recognize is that, to your point, it's way harder than you think it's going to be. And I think and it's a mindset shift, I believe. Like if you go into every day knowing that you're probably not going to make it. I mean, like my story, like right up in the beginning, right? I was like trying to build a media company doing podcasting, and there was no market for it. There was a gap in the market, but no market in the gap. So I got asked this question recently, like what makes a great startup idea? It's like, well, if you can commercialize it, like how fast can you commercialize it? Because if you can't commercialize it, you just have an idea and you don't have a business. So, but I think the bottom line really comes down to, for me anyway, is the mindset that you take into the struggle of trying to build a business. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like in other words, it's not about the short-term upside, because there's very little. Like you get the small wins, like you win a deal, you make a sale, whatever. But really, it's a lifelong struggle.
Well, okay, so
does it make sense?
Absolutely. So there's 2 things I want to say to you. Anyone listen to the show that hasn't read Phil Knight's Shoe Dog should read it.
Great book.
But the takeaway for me was this: he was broke for 14 years.
Totally broke.
In debt for 14 years. They IPO'd and he became a billionaire, right?
Yes.
Like whatever the number was.
Yes.
But like he was broke for they lived in the same house, same car. He didn't have cash flow in his life. He didn't live like the dream by any means. Okay. It all came rolling in at the end. But it's like there's an important lesson there, because it took him a long time, and very smartly so. Part 1. Part 2. The businesses that I look at that have done incredibly well will look back in hindsight and going, we were so lucky timing the market. Now it's luck. Now guys come to me and go, what builds a business? I'm going, hard work, process, people, blah, blah, blah. Luck, network, timing, huge, okay? But sometimes you can actually plan that luck, because what happens is a lot of guys come out of a corporate and go, I'm going to start a business. What am I going to start? I'm going to start something I know. Okay, so I'm a banker, I'm starting a banking thing. I'm a designer, I start a design agency. Or they go, I'm going to start a coffee shop, which they don't know, and then it fails, right? Like it's difficult. Don't start a coffee shop.
Unless you're the customer, then it's a guaranteed win.
Yeah, okay. So the important thing here is that if you got the luxury of time and money and you want to start a business, do the research and work out where the puck is going, right? Is that I look at the guys that have built very big businesses in a very quick period of time. They had an idea. They weren't aware that the market was about to crest, right? Like that wave that had been growing for a while. They went, I'm going to go do this. And all of a sudden, they were ahead of everyone else, because they had started this thing 6 months, a year before anyone else. Suddenly, there was a market, as you say, and they were first. And that gave them huge amounts of power to demand price, hire the best talent, get purchased potentially. But none of them, I know, go back and go, we were very clever. We saw the wave coming, and then we decided to build that business. No, you didn't, okay? But that's an important piece to look at, because you can decide, well, where is, like right now, what are the big trends, right? We can go down the NFT crypto space. But undoubtedly,
bubble.
Maybe not, right? I think there's utility one day at the end of this. In the same way managing your Facebook page was a bubble 10 years ago, okay? It became utility. There is value in Facebook for the user and obviously for the shareholders, obviously, right? Except maybe not last week when the price took a tank. But the point being is that I think that on the crypto space, there's going to be utility. So not hustling for NFTs and crypto punks and Bored Ape Yacht Clubs, like none of that. I'm talking about like figure out where the real value is going to be. It's coming. Start building that now. Now, it's taking a punt, and it may not be your expertise, but that's the place you probably could start. I hate the word disruption, right? Pharmacy, insurance, education, all a bit broken, big middlemen. It's like start something in that space.
Yeah, I just don't think you should bank on a trend. It shouldn't inform the decision.
No, but
Like the thing for me is, it's just a point of view difference. So my view is there's immediate needs that can be solved now, and then there are trends that shape the problem over the 12, 24, 36 months.
Right?
But if you go, NFTs are the shite, and then we're going to be building an NFT blockchain thing, and you can use my tokens to get into an event, and that's never going to fucking work now. It's not going to work now.
I agree.
So despite the fact that Gary Vaynerchuk, has sold his stupid caricatures and stuff like that, right? It's not something you can build a business on right now. But in the future, it can be. So I'm saying my experience has been is that you build what's the goal here? Like the first thing you want to do is make money. If you don't have money, you can't get your first customer, you don't have a business.
Sure.
So solve an immediate need.
But that was my discussion around luxury of time, right? Is that if you need to pay your salary today, you're not building NFT blockchain stuff.
No way, dude.
Okay? You're selling your hours, right? Whatever that is. If you've got the ability to start going, well, who's the network I need in the NFT space? Who are these blockchain developers? Where's the utility? And let's do some investigation around that and have the time to build that and time that right. You could make stupid money.
Yeah.
But you're also going to be the one-off, right? You're going to be the Instagram, like the 11 guys and $1 billion. Like, let's pretend that that's not you, okay? But the one thing which is also really interesting is there was a beautiful quote from one of the Adam Grant books. And he talks about pioneers versus settlers. So the pioneers are the guys that are first to markets, and settlers are the guys that are coming behind the pioneers, right? And I can't remember their stats. Go look for it. It's probably online somewhere. But the pioneers fail like 70% more than the settlers, right? Because they're too early. They haven't figured out the problems. Where the settlers are figuring out of the learnings of the guys in front, and the length of time that those settlers last in terms of how long their business lasts, also like multiples of the pioneers. So you don't, and this is based on his study across obviously thousands of businesses. You don't want to be first. You almost want to be second or third, right? Like you want to be behind the leader, and being second is often more than enough. And there's a great saying that if you're the second biggest business in every region, you're the biggest business in the world. But it's also the thing around. I believe most business owners who think they're entrepreneurs are actually business owners. Because entrepreneurs.
What's the difference?
Entrepreneur comes from the Latin word risk taker. Okay, that's the definition vaguely, right? So risk taker is someone that takes a big risk. So yes, I could start a business and be a business owner. But entrepreneurs, the way I understand it is, I want bigger, I want more, I want the next, I want to flip this one and buy another one, right? Like more stuff, more at the same time, potentially. Where a business owner can build a very good business, but they have maybe no ambition to own more. Okay, so they grow great businesses on their own, and they can, but it's not I want to tunnel underground, fly to Mars, sell cars and batteries, and like that's entrepreneurship, right? Like tons of stuff. But it's okay to be the Me Too business. I think we've talked about this once before, actually. It's like the Me Too is like, I own a design agency, Me Too. That's okay. As long as there's a market for it, and you can do something quicker, faster, cheaper, or with love, you can pay private school fees for your kids. You know what I mean? So it's okay to be that sometimes and not have the aspiration to always have the biggest business. I mean, I pointed to you, and I got, 3 fingers pointing back at me for argument's sake, is the fact that like I preach these things, and yet I have no intention of building a much bigger business. I don't want to employ people. I don't want to go down the tech path. I like what I have.
So what are you then? Are you an entrepreneur or a business owner?
I'm a business owner.
Yeah?
Yeah. In fact, I'm probably a freelancer, independent professional. It's probably what I am.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think there's downsides though, because, so this is actually a great point. So when you mentioned, Shoe Dog, Phil Knight, right? Yep. So he was a broke ass bitch for like 14 years, and then they listed, and then he became rich. So that's a great story around to illustrate the point that I made earlier, is that if you start this journey, you're going to be pretty much broke for a long time. Maybe you'll have a little bit of money unless your business has enough free cash to support a lifestyle. So it's very subjective, I'm saying. But on the whole, you're not wealthy. You're not rich, right? You're just getting by. You might be affluent, but
you're rich on paper, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But you're not driving around buying Ferraris and stuff, right? So there is a liquidity event that needs to happen in the future in order for you to get rich. So
that's one way.
The other way, so this is why I sold, because I want to now, go and acquire a business with customers, take all the risk out of it, and then go and scale that for 2 years, sell that one, and then rinse, repeat. So that's really what my kind of focus is on. But going back to before the exit, I also started to add to the product, to the business portfolio. So there was Digital Kung Fu, then we added Tech Lead Bay, then there was Find My Prospect, then there was Super Data Ninja, and then there was SME Rocket Fuel, and we added all of these things. And one of the biggest lessons for me was it actually creates a lack of focus. And so if you add 5 businesses to your portfolio, you think that you're going to grow 5 times faster, build a business 5 times faster, whatever the case is. And in reality, you're actually, it's 5x negative, because it takes 5 times the focus to get there, 5 times the capital, 5 times all that stuff. But if I hadn't have done that, if I wasn't the entrepreneur, I wouldn't have sold for the value that I did at the end of the day, because those products...
Maybe.
What do you mean, maybe?
Well, because you don't know, because you didn't go down that route, right? So you're saying we got so option 1 is we go and do what you did. We build 5 products, or 5 different businesses, and we know what the result of that was. Option 2, which you didn't go, was let's pick one, go deep in it, apply way more energy and effort into that, become world class at that. Maybe the same exit, or maybe more. Maybe, right? Now, the thing which is interesting is that every single business owner has a different way in which they want to run their business. You might be the guy that likes to chase the shiny pennies, where some guys, and we talk about like grit and ability to deal with pain, are able to look at it. I'll give you an example. So there are guys that have grown monster accounting firms. Okay, they don't do anything else. They're not building tech. They build accounting firms. There's an accounting solution. It's the same thing every single day. We do your books. We submit your books. We pay your taxes. We give you reports. We bill you every single day, right? Some people have the ability to not get bored or endure the pain of just doing that on scale, okay? And they can grow a big business. Some people can't tolerate that. They need the newness. They need other things. So there's no right and wrong, but it's based on who you are and what you can tolerate or what you desire. So you desire newness and new stuff. Some guys can tolerate doing books all day long, forever and forevermore. So that's the one thing. The second thing for me is that there's 3 ways to acquire wealth. 3 ways. The one is milk the business every single month, take a salary and a bonus and a dividend, right? So grow the business.
Pull out all the profits.
Just keep taking the profits out forever.
And do what with it?
No, save it.
Into what?
Immaterial, right? I'm saying is, but you could save the money.
What do you mean it's immaterial?
No, hang on. But the point being is this. You can take money out along the journey and become wealthy. You can. Hang on. Number 2, you can do Phil Knight, Shoe Dog, not take money out, grow the business with all your effort and the cash, and liquidity event at the end. Sell, IPO, whatever, right? Or the third option is the blend. Okay? Take money out along the way and sell at the end. Now, obviously, there's no absolute ratio in terms of if you do one or the other, which will be more successful. But I'll tell you one thing for absolute sure, is that you can take money out every single month if the business is profitable. You absolutely may or may not be able to sell this business in one day. Just because you will now want to sell the business and there is value, you may not actually find a buyer. So, like, unless you're discounting the crap out of it, right? But what tends to happen is that you either let it too late, that now you've become slightly irrelevant and you've devalued the business, and there's a bit of competition and you can't get your price, so you're stuck with this thing, which isn't always bad, but you're not making the multiples you thought you would. Or someone comes early on in your journey and says, here's some money, you want to buy your business, and you go, I'm not ready, and then you do the deal anyway, because that's generally what happens, right? But the point being here is that I think that de-risking it to some degree, if you are risk averse, is that you've got to be scraping a little bit of cash off the top every single month and saving that money, like where you put, not NFTs, right? Saving the money, but putting it somewhere, and obviously trying to build it to sell it ideally.
Yeah.
But you may never sell it. That's the reality.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
dangerous.
I think that risk is less. So what I've learned is, especially from this last acquisition, is how many buyers there are for a business that's generating free cash. Like that for me is the litmus test. So it's like,
Yeah, but free cash with what? So
or just through selling services or products, basically.
Yeah, but okay, I agree with that. But there's a headache factor, right?
What I'm saying is there's an 80% likelihood that if your business is is profitable and it's run well, you can sell it, as opposed to a 20% downside of not having a buyer. Usually the reason for that has actually got nothing to do with the financials at all. It's about the wrong management team or the wrong market.
There's a million reasons why guys buy businesses, or the different reasons. But also what you're not considering is your experience today is based on this particular market today. If I'd said this to you in 2008, you're selling your business. I don't care how profitable it is, no one's touching your shit. Okay? Why? Because the market is disastrous.
It's the best time to buy a business, dude.
Guys weren't deploying cash. Okay? So what I'm saying to you is that there's other things, okay, which other things that influence when you should be selling or how you could be selling and when you're extracting the most amount of money. That's not always in your control. So I personally like the idea of building businesses for an exit. I do. Because I think if you can get that right and the timing right, firstly, great changing life event. But secondly, the things that need to happen along the way in terms of 2RC, branding, RP protection, process and policy, all the stuff that happens inside a business to make it valuable should be in place if you're going to extract the most value at the end. So it teaches you and gives you a real goal to work towards, to go, you want to sell this business? Who's going to buy the business? What are they going to find attractive? What are the 10 traits of your business? And things like brand value, technology or people, succession planning, above market related margins consistently, great clients, great contracts, those things. Go do those things. Your business will be more sellable in future, right? So it helps drive that conversation of what we should be doing on a daily basis. But I think that a lot of people are risk averse and cannot do full night. They cannot actually sacrifice the pain today for the benefit of the future, long term. Like the reason why I think that's remarkable is that for 14 years, not a year or 2 or 3, for 14 years. I mean, he had kids grow up through most of their high school not being rich.
Well, also to that point, every time to grow, he had to reinvest almost 100% of their money.
And loan.
And borrow a shit ton of money to basically get it to a point where it could be listable.
Sure.
Or, because when you list, you're effectively selling.
Yeah.
So, I agree with you. I don't think people are really prepared to suck up the pain for the long term.
Yeah.
And I also agree with you that you should absolutely build your business for exit from day one. You should think about how do I package this thing?
Option. This is the freedom piece. You may or may not want to sell in 10 years. You may or may not find a buyer. Choice of going, I don't have to work, and I can hand the keys over tomorrow and someone else can take over this business. That's the option, right?
Yeah.
Where if you built the business where I'm buying you and you're going to be in the business for 5 years, you've lost your option of freedom. So therefore, don't do the deal, right?
Yeah.
Then you built it wrong.
This is it. And, by the way, I've got processed for the US on Thursday.
Oh, congratulations.
Finally, after 3 years. What a
Thanks,
ball ache.
Mr. Trump, yeah.
Thank you, Trump. Yeah, we love you. It's amazing. No, we don't. I don't know. I'm pretty agnostic about that.
About Trump?
Yeah.
And I think he's the orange Hitler, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, but, the reason... That's an actual interesting first-hand story that really sums up what we've covered, right? So I applied for an O1 extraordinary ability visa for the US like 3 years ago.
Is that your hair?
Yeah, it's definitely my hair. But the podcast, funnily enough, was one of the main reasons what got me in there for business and media.
Right.
That was the category. So, and then COVID happened. In fact, they were already backlogged for the first year. Then COVID happened. The consulate was literally closed for 2 years.
Yeah.
So you couldn't get processed at all. So in that period of time, I knew that I was going to move to the US. And what I didn't want to be was in a situation where I had to get on a plane and then try and run a business from the US when it's based in South Africa. Like that would be a very tough job to do. And based on, we've had that conversation before as well, where, it's very few people have actually pulled that off successfully. And so the choice that I wanted was to be able to sell it before I am forced to get on a plane.
Right.
So in that 2-year period, I packaged everything for the exit. Everything was designed, carefully constructed to get a sale. So now I have that, and it was just so weird. Like, how's the universe for timing? If it was 6 months ago that the consulate opened up, or if it was a year ago, it would have made my life much harder, knowing that I had to sell, but I may have to be forced to get on a plane, because when you get this thing, green card, essentially, you have to go. So how's this for timing? Literally, bro, within like 2 weeks from processing to sign, paying money in the bank, is in a 2-week window over a 3-year period. It couldn't have happened better. But if I hadn't had planned for that over that period, if I hadn't planned for the exit, I wouldn't have had that freedom. I wouldn't have had that choice to do the move that I need to do. You know what I mean?
But the thing around that, which is interesting, and it wasn't within your control, but is deadline. So the thing that has stuck with me, and this is back to the COVID existential question, right, is what is the ultimate deadline in business? I'm asking you. What is the ultimate?
In what context?
Like, in order to grow your business and make cash and live the life that you want, what's the ultimate deadline?
When you no longer love the business.
Death.
Oh, okay. Which death? The death of the business.
Death of you. Okay. So what the reason why I say that is that when you're 20, you do think you're going to live forever. Okay, and like you've got all the time in the world, and you don't. Okay, so you blink and you're 50. Okay, now what I find is that a lot of the clients that I'm dealing with now are, let's call them middle-aged white men, and the question they've got is that they've got the toys and the houses and the overseas holidays and some money in the bank and maybe some NFTs, but they're going, how much is enough? Because what am I working for, right? Like I'm working for personal satisfaction, maybe. They might get some joy out of what they do and the people and whatever that is, ego, whatever that is. But also, deep down, a lot of the guys are going, I do this because it's got to give me some kind of financial freedom. So the question is, financial freedom, the phrase. If I asked you, what does that mean? So what does that mean for you? Matt, you are financially free today. What does that mean? Does it mean a number?
It means that... Well, I suppose there's so if I could, I have an answer, but the way to get to the answer is by asking a question, actually, which is, what is the difference between being rich and being wealthy?
Oh, I know.
What is it?
Rich is lifestyle. Wealthy is annuity income greater than your monthly burn.
Yeah, okay, there's many ways to define it. My way is you take your annual expenses, multiply by 25, whatever that number is, that's rich. You take your annual expenses, you multiply that number by 50. That's wealthy. So that's cash in the bank, meaning you don't have to work for 25 years or 50 years. So you'd have to think about like all the things that go into your...
I've got a very similar thing, a different calculation, right? And this comes from old Mr. Money Mustache, if you've followed him online, right? But end of last year, I went down a bit of a deep journey, very dark rabbit pit around like this, how much is enough conversation. And he's got a very interesting, there's a rule online, it's called the rule of 300 or the 4% rule, same thing. Proper calculation, looks like calculus, right? But ultimately what it says to you is, what is your current lifestyle costs today? So how much does it cost you to live? So let's just call it $100,000, 100,000 Rand, sorry, 100,000 Rand. So forget about how you make the money, but it costs you that amount of money to get out of bed every month and pay school fees and house and blah, 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 whatever it is, right? You need 300 times that in assets that are producing income. So not the house that you live in, because that isn't producing income, right? 300 times. So 100,000 Rand, 30 million Rand. If you've got 30 million Rand in the bank, based on an average across the globe, net after tax return is 4%. 4% of 30 million, 100,000 Rand. What he's saying is that if you've got 300 times your living expenses in the bank, you can stop working today and die with your capital. Now, 30 million might seem like a lot today. In 50 years, not so much. But who cares, right? Because it will actually, your living expenses also deteriorate. It considers the curve of when you're 20, living in a digs with your mates, you have no overhead. When you're 45 with 2 kids in private school, you have overhead. And when you're 70, living in a small flat with your wife, you have no overhead. It considers that profile of overhead. But the rule is take your costs times about 300. Okay? You get a number quite quickly, and it gives you a sense of how far away am I from that.
300 is massive.
Not 300 times. 30 million over 100.
Okay.
If it's costing 100 grand, you need 30 million in the bank. So how far away from 30 million? And what will it take to get there? Am I saving money every month? Am I spending less? Am I selling more? Am I building it to sell? Combination of those things. But what that does is that it gives you a sense of urgency. Because freedom, financial freedom, is the ability to wake up and go, I don't want to work. Option, okay? That for me is financial freedom. Maintain my lifestyle, don't have to work. If I want to work, cool. If I want to work on other stuff, cool. That's, for me, what financial freedom equals, right? Just to maintain your lifestyle. Now, you talk about Ferraris. I'm not a Ferrari guy. Like, I know I'm never flying first class, even if I inherited billions of rands. I'm not.
Lies.
Okay, no, I'll fly business class for sure. I'm not flying first class. I'm not buying a Learjet, right? But so I sort of know who I am at the stage of my life. So I'm a business class passenger in life, not a first class. So I know that I don't need more than that 300 number, because I'm not going to go out and blow more cash anyway. It's just not who I am.
So have you worked it out? Like how much is it?
I know what mine is.
How much is it?
So mine's just under 30.
30 bar.
30 bar.
So that's $2 million.
Around that. But okay, so it works across the globe, and that 4% is true across the globe because it's actually an American, most of the literature is American. But the point being is that when I tell people that, I'm going, in order for you to genuinely have the choice of not wanting to work, do you want that? Yeah, cool. Here's your number. Now how far away from you? That is a motivator. Because then people go, oh, hang on a second, I've got to make more, I want to spend less, I've got to invest smartly, and I've got to do it much quicker.
Mm.
Now, part of this rule, which is just an aside potentially, is that if you have zero money in the bank, so you have no assets that are producing any return for you, if you save 50% of your salary net after tax every month, it will take you 17 years to get to your 300 number.
Mm.
Okay? So if you want to start saving money, if that's the way you're going to do it, you better stop wasting cash, okay? Figure out how to increase your top line dramatically, and then put money in like a nice Jewish boy, stock it away nicely, okay? And make sure it's giving you a return, whether it's property, whether it's, whatever the returns you want, wherever you want to put it. But that for me is often the conversation when guys go, oh, Jesus, I'm far from that. Okay, now how do you feel? I better go work. As opposed to, I'm just coasting along, maybe one day I'll sell it.
So you know what my number is?
Your actual number?
Yeah. What do you think it is in dollars?
I'm
curious because you know me.
This is your fuck yeah number.
Yeah, like financial freedom number.
10 bar?
In dollars.
US, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly right.
That's a big number, eh? No, it's not unachievable. It's a big number.
It's so achievable. It's actually...
Well, the funny thing is that I don't think it's... I think it's easier, and give me a clap when you're stepping out of line here, but I think it's easier in the States than it is in South Africa.
Oh, yeah, by a mile, bro. If I'd built this...
Purely because of the scale, right?
Dude, exactly. And if I was literally the same business, and I was, running it out of the US, I would have way more than $10 million already, if having sold this thing, and the $10 million number for me is like money's not a motivator. Like I almost now
it's a measure.
I don't actually even believe in setting concrete cement goals. You know what I'm saying? Like life's too unpredictable.
Fluffy, dreamy goals.
Intention.
Yeah.
So if you set the intention to to get to 10 million, that's great, rather than I'm going to get to $10 million by 2025 and it's going to be done. Like that's bullshit. So it's too much of a plan, and you should never let your plans get in the way of your journey. So I've done the math on this, right? So I'm 42 now, turning 43.
You're a baby.
I'm a youngster, man. So I've got like 20 years to get to amass $10 million. So if you think about the fact that now I have cash, I can go and buy a business with customers. I can build systems around that I have used before that I know can grow this thing. And let's just say it's got 1,000 subscribers. I take it from 1,000 to 3,000 in the first year. I have just literally inject growth capital into this thing, almost like a similar mindset to a VC, just growth capital. You want to scale. So you can buy a business for $250,000, $500,000, right? Easy. You put another $250,000 into growth. That's a lot of money, man. And if you can't grow, and if you can add, a 2,000 subscribers, what does that do to the value of that business? So hypothetically speaking, if that business was worth, with 1,000 subscribers, $1 million, you're adding another 200% onto that. So now the business is worth $3 million. You do it for one more year, but you double down on that. You put pretty much everything down into growth. You go from 3 to 6,000 or 6.5. What is the business now worth? Okay, so that's the strategy. But let's be conservative and say after 2 years, you land on an additional 2,000 subscribers. It's now 3,000. That thing is worth $2 million in 24 months. So now I add that to my net, my goal of $10 million. And that's being super conservative, right, around valuation. There's a whole lot of modeling that needs to go into that. But the principle being is that if I buy, grow, and sell just 2 more times, you should be
able to do that.
Easily do $10 million. Easily.
Well, the big thing for me is that the American market, and I've been blessed is the wrong word, right? Because I don't believe in that. But I've been lucky enough, fortunate enough, to have a lot of South Africans leave this country and take me with them, right, all over the bloody place. And the numbers in the States are staggering for me. A friend of mine was supplying the banks here, and he was supplying 5 or 6 banks, and that was it. It was a good business. Like, that's as far as he could go, right? And then he went to live in the States, and we catch up every now and then. How's it going? He's like, Spilly, there's 11,000 banks in America. 11,000.
Is that legit?
Legit. Because families own a bank. It's a one-off branch, right? So they're not standard banks. They're not like multi-branches, but they have big ones, obviously, the big ones, and the big ones are massive. But then there's like so many of these. The point being is every single one of those requires what he sells. The numbers are staggering. And it's the same with like a lot of other clients that are doing work there. You hear how many people, subscribers you call them, are available there versus the South African market. And you just realize that if you can just crack that, the opportunity is unbelievable. Different way of thinking about it. Having said that, I still think South Africa has great opportunities within the local environment, and I'm intrigued by this brain drain again in this country, only because all my clients are going, find me people, Spilly, all day long, every day. I can't find people. But that screams opportunity to put up your price, to be smarter. There's opportunities, right? So I think there's still good legs left in this country as well to make good money.
But it's about to your point, like right up front. But it's about the perspective that you take into the space. Because either you're victim or victor. You know what I mean? You're either going to go, well, I'm either going to be a fixed mindset type individual, or I'm going to be growth mindset to figure out, well, how can I make the most of this challenge? Because challenges are opportunities in many cases. I think like every advice thing I've ever received about America was, sell here and take your money there and start again. Don't take your business from here and try and scale it there unless it's like technology or whatever. And I always had a fundamental problem with that, because you're almost admitting defeat before you've tried. You know what I mean? And it again goes back to who you are as a mindset, as an entrepreneur, and what mindset you operate with every day. But like, I would rather have tried and failed than not have tried at all.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to kill the goose.
Okay, so it's a moot point for you because you've done this anyway, what you've done, right? Which I think is probably the right choice. But there's something that really struck me in January. So I have a client that's just moved to the UK who is a moose of a man, okay? You think you've got tats, like you have no idea. And almost emotionally broke down on a call in January. And I was like, well, what's going on? He's like, I'm standing in my Tesco's, Pick and Pay, whatever the equivalent was, this morning. My wife said to me, quickly shoot to the shops and buy me some jik. I'm standing in the queue, standing in the aisles, looking at all these products, and I don't know what Jik is, and I don't know what Domestos is, and I don't know what Skip is, and I don't know what Omo is. I know nothing. And then I stood there going, I don't know whether I can pay for parking with the money I've got. Does it take notes and coins? And if I need notes, where's the nearest ATM? And he had a bit of emotional breakdown, right? In terms of the fact that you plan for the big things, where the kid's going to go to school, where we're going to live, how we get a house, open a bank account, I need a cell phone. You plan for those things, right? You don't plan for the fine-tuned shit that you don't think about till you hit the ground. Now, it's an example. It's the straw that broke the camel's back, right? But it's the understanding the local knowledge, like having that local knowledge is something you can't transpose between continents with ease. You have to go find that place, land, settle, understand what your Jik, Domestos, Omo, and Skip is, right? And then go, where's the opportunity? Because I think that we take so much for granted around what we know here, and we think it's copy and paste. Tech sometimes is, but if it's service, it's different. The way we sell is different. I've got a client now that's in Canada, and they do work with the schools. And they opened up in Canada, and the single biggest assumption they made was that they understood the year was different. We were Jan to December, there it's September to August, whatever it is. But the curriculums here run for 12 months. So you do maths the whole year. Not in Canada. Canada, you do it in tranches. So you're doing 3 subjects or 2 subjects for a couple of months, then you're done. Then you pick up the next subjects and you do it and it affects their business. So they wouldn't have known that with all the research because they just made assumptions basically until they were there. Changes their model a bit. So the point being is that you're more likely to fail trying to do it there from here, okay, than doing what you've done. Uprooting, clean, start again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super excited to get there. So like I've started like for a long, like I've been running the show now for 7 years, and I've never once up until December, commercialized it. And now like I'm printing money with the podcast. Like I'm literally printing money. So much so that I cannot wait to get to America because it's literally I'm clear around around what the opportunity is that I'm going to go after. And I'm already talking to Americans from here. I'm already selling in America from here.
Sure.
So the business, it's a media company. I'm essentially going to start again. It's like the Matt Brown show story from 7 years ago is now legit because the market is so much bigger. They're already paying me to do what I do for them. And like the numbers are ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? So the other thing to say is that I'm not planning to go to the States to create a startup. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I'm going to buy a business, that strategy that I mentioned earlier. Take all the risk out of a startup and just scale this thing, right? But then use the media company to help do that. And then also to use the media company to support my lifestyle while I'm on the ground. Because the money I'll make there, like I wouldn't need to, like it wouldn't even touch the nest egg that I have, so to speak. So I'm super bullish about what I'm doing here already by selling there. And the other thing to say is that if it wasn't for COVID,
I was going to say that, yeah.
If it wasn't for COVID, I wouldn't be saying what I'm saying, right? Because people, like, you'd have to fly to the US.
No, the ability. Well, I mean, you were jumping on planes. I remember that at one point. Like, with selfing in New York. Like, here I am.
Here I am.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
me walking in New York.
And this goes back to the big resignation discussion, right? Is that the ability pre-COVID to launch or start a business and selling was very difficult anywhere else in the world, right? Very difficult. Now, and the acceleration of technology has obviously helped, and payment gateways and all the other wonderful things we have. But the ability to jump on a call and not care where the other person who is selling to me is just, it's a massive, massive barrier that's been taken down. Massive. I want to ask another question. You're a smart guy. You did some work in which one of the big, you did work in one of the big 4 consultancies at one point, right?
Accenture, yeah.
Okay. So the question I have, Accenture is obviously all about, models. There are lots of models they use within that business. When you now planning your American landing, right? Are you using any strategic models to remove risk, to plan, to think ahead? Like, or are you just processing stuff in your head, Are you processing stuff in your head according to a series of matrices or matrices? Are you writing stuff out or using technology? Like, I'm curious to know how you're making these decisions, because you're very bullish, and I know you're not a stupid man. You've thought about lots of stuff, but I'm curious to know how much of it is formalized, how much of it is just research and then process. Like, I'm curious to know your decision-making process.
Yeah. So I say 80% of it's intuition.
Okay.
And just feedback data, and internalizing that and testing it in my own mind.
Right.
In conversation. I mean, obviously the way you validate anything is someone prepared to pay for it. So, but I don't model, like, it's actually I'm very different to the status quo in the sense of I almost don't have a plan. So what I do is I have a set of assumptions, and then I go and I execute on those things. So for instance, I'll land in the US.
Yeah.
We don't even know where we're going to live. I mean, this is indicative, right? So getting on a plane, landing in New York, hiring an RV, and then driving around the US for like 2 months, Airbnb, stay where we wanted to stay, whatever, but just go and see. Because in the same way that, you don't Google top places to live in the US and then you go and you fucking live there. Like,
number one.
Like, what's wrong with you? You know what I mean? So, so you just don't do that. And so I just believe, to your point, be on the ground, and then when you're there, you figure shit out. So in other words, probably the greatest lesson that I've learned over the last 3 years is to build your business around the problem, and don't believe for a moment that if you think you're going to start X, that X is the business you're going to inherit. You just got to figure shit out on the ground as you go. And that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur, in that is your DNA. You just intuitively figure stuff out. Like, I didn't bank on, building a lead generation business for tech companies.
I remember that, because when we started, you didn't know what the hell you were going to do. You just knew you were doing something.
I was doing something.
It was gaining traction. That's what it was.
I mean, it's pretty uncertain, especially if you don't have any runway or financial backing. But that's all very different now for me. I think there's a few things that I have now in my life that I've never had, and now going to the US, it's like, even now it may change. I'm thinking it could be this, but it may not be. Do you know what I mean?
Well, what is really interesting is that we moved a year and a half ago into Cape Town, and everyone in Cape Town said, don't buy. So firstly, I laughed because I can't afford to buy anything. But secondly, they were like, just rent somewhere to get a sense. Okay, just get a sense of the way this works. And it was the best thing I ever did, because you really understand that road is traffic at 8 o'clock. That spa is shit. This is a better one. Like you actually start understanding. And then after a year, you start going, I actually got a real sense of, if I had to buy here or really settle, where would that actually be? How high up the hill and left or right would I go, right? And so I think that the same is probably true for you, is that even the 2 months RV going, is it New York or is it Austin? And then it's Austin, and then we're in Austin. I'd probably still rent for a while and then have a clear understanding that we're here for a while till we actually understand how this operates, and then move locally into a place that's better for us.
Yeah.
And it's got to do with the fact, like, driving here, I see all the roads here are blocked off on the edge. I didn't know that. But, like, you need to know that. When I saw the plan, I could have go, I want to live on this street in your area. Brilliant. And then realized you can't get to the street the way I thought you could, because it's a block off. You won't know until you're there. Google Maps doesn't tell you that. So absolutely right. Like, local knowledge, everything. Okay. I want to ask a couple of questions. The biggest concern I've always had about immigration, and there's lots of them, is network. Okay. My life is very much around network. I've been in this country, in this city, for a very long time. I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people who know a lot of people. I'm 1 degree away from pretty much anyone, like outside of the government, probably. And I know that I can use that and leverage that and activate my network if need be. Okay. I know I can reach people. If you drop me in Austin, unless you live in there, I won't know anyone else. Okay. How important is network in order to grow a successful business?
It's very important, but it's not essential. So when in South Africa, at least, I had to grow my network through the podcast. And in fact, my network now, I have a really great network all around the world. Even in Austin, I know people. I know people in New York. I know people in Colorado. I know people in California. I know people in Silicon Valley. and it's all through my show.
Sure.
So this is why I keep saying to people are like, oh, no, a podcast, downloads, how many downloads? Like, no. It's got nothing to do with the downloads, dude. It's got everything to do with the connections that you make. Like, if I wanted to get in touch with Bo Burlingham, the editor of Inc. magazine, and ask a favor, I can do that. If I wanted to talk to, like, let's just say a rocket scientist who builds rockets for NASA, I can talk to that person. I had Rachel McCord on the show. She's a celebrity over there. I mean, I don't understand why or how, whatever, but she's a celebrity, very on reality TV shows. She's been in films. She's been at like the Oscars, all this stuff. And like I interviewed her, and she's like, and I said to her, yeah, I'm moving to the States. She goes, dude, if you ever come to Las Vegas, let me know. We'll show you around. You know what I mean?
No, but that's the reason, or that's the value you get out of the show, right? If you start the show going, I have to monetize the show, then it's about downloads, listeners, blah, 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 right? But the inherent value of it is the network. And I think that's, I mean...
But you don't need network to make money.
So you don't, but it helps.
It does, but fuck that. So like I put this video out the other day. It was called the $1 Million Cold Call Script.
Yeah.
So like now, to your point right up front, like it's, if you start a business, you have more tools at your disposal now than you ever have. So like I can't wait to go, because in my head I know exactly how I'm going to get the phone number for a business with between 50 and 250 staff in technology in Colorado, and I can get that literally for like $20. And I can get 1,000 of those companies or those decision makers. So what I do with that, then I literally go, hi, I want to meet you. And I gave the whole cold call script away. And I know how to sell. I don't need a fucking network to make money.
No, but hang on. So there's an important thing here, right? Not every business owner or entrepreneur can sell. Now, the good ones have to. Like the ones that you meet going, this guy, I mean... The day I met you, I was like, oh, you're a sales guy. Like, for sure. No, but it's true, right? And you know it.
So judgmental.
But in a positive way. It's a natural talent and ability, okay, to be able to sell. Because there's a whole bunch of underlying cues that people are born with, I think. You can train it, but I think there's natural salespeople. But not everyone can sell. So therefore, you need to either build network or figure out how to market your business and have a sales process, right? But so one of the questions I ask my clients when we take them on is that I'm going, are you a sales-driven business, i.e. cold call, outreach, mail, whatever, supported by marketing? So if I Google you, do I see that what you're saying in my cold call is what's actually happening online? Or are you a marketing-driven business, collecting leads somehow, and then filtering through a sales process to conversion? And more often than not, guys go, I prefer the marketing route. And I'm going, well, marketing route's a bit more expensive. You don't know who it's going to actually hit. I mean, there's some smart tools you can hit exactly who you want if you want, but it is a bit more spray and pray. You don't know when it's going to work or how long it's going to take, and you don't know, but it works, right? Like, it does work. Then you need to make sure you can convert those guys. Sales, all the pain out the way, right? Mm-hmm. Except for the emotional pain. Like you going, I'll pick up the phone, I'll call, I've got the script. I know you used to do that challenge, right? But I mean, the majority of people I know, probably including myself, don't really want to do that. Like, I rely on my network to generate leads. I rely on my credibility. I rely on a little bit of social presence. It's enough. Public speaking here and there. It helps. It works for me, okay? I'm not trying to find 1,000 subscribers. That's not what I'm trying to build. I'm a low volume, high touch business.
So I think the point is to know who you are. Like,
exactly.
So I'm a hunter. Like, I don't give a shit about rejection. I love it. I dig phoning people and getting what I want. I love that. I get a high off that shit. In fact, I would say 99% of the millions of dollars that we made in revenue, okay, was all on the phone. Not a single AdWord spent. We didn't spend a cent on marketing. Not 1 cent.
Why do you love sales?
Why?
Yeah, why do you love it?
Because it's easy. Making money is easy. Like, once you know how to make money, like, I'm an introvert, right? You know this. So I'm like an extroverted introvert, or whatever you want to call it.
Ambivert, I think.
Ambivert. But like,
you're vert neutral.
Like, it's just, you make money. It's like, cool, bro. Like, I can look at a business, I can sit in front of a dude or a woman who's a owner of a business, and I can figure out with a series of questions how I'm going to make money off that person. What do you want to do? What do? You want to get your brand out there? You want to get leads? You want to sell some shit? Like, do you want to launch a product? Like, what's going on?
So where's your weakness?
In what? In selling?
In business. So like
processes, systems, operations,
you're not that guy,
people.
hey?
Yeah,
Admin.
I hate it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's okay. So what I love about that is that it's easier to find the process people than the salespeople. Much easier.
Much easier.
Because good salespeople, really good salespeople, run their own business like they do because they know they can, right? They can bring in. I can bring in the money. Someone else can solve the problems.
Yeah. The other thing to say is that no one will sell like the founder.
Yeah, I agree with that as well.
So this is my thing. You can spend time and money doing creative and lead gen and like for me, it's like that you do after survival stage and you're in scale up.
Yeah,
that's when you do that.
I agree.
Day one, the fastest way to make money is to pick up the phone and go make money. Go, hey man, can I have a chat to you about like how we could help you? No, okay, cool. Next one. There's a million other dudes.
Yeah, it's a numbers game, right?
It's a numbers game.
Sure.
And like with tools like Find My Prospect, which we built, like I can get access to, like this is another thing. 3 years ago, those tools didn't exist. So now it's like I can get access to literally anyone in any state.
Well, through technology.
Through tech.
Okay, but also, I mean, you can just get onto
without spending money on media. I'm talking about $29.
But what I'm saying is
sell
that
as much as I
you can
want.
get onto Upwork and find a Bangladeshi list builder who will build you a list of 50 names for $5. Like, and they pre-vetted qualified numbers, right? Numbers or email. So I'm like, there is no excuse if you want to go that route not to do it. Now,
But why would people choose any other way? Like that for me doesn't make sense.
But I'm saying to you, why don't you do your own admin? Why don't you build your own processes? Why don't you?
I can. I just prefer not to.
So that's the same reason. They prefer not to.
No, but
do you?
But not on day one if you need to make money.
Sure. Do you?
Do what?
How quickly did you outsource everything behind the scenes?
As fast as possible.
Okay. So the reality is that most companies, most people are the opposite of you. That they like to look internally. And we can build the insight that this thing can scale nicely, but they haven't solved the sales problem yet. And I say a lot of people, some people just stumble across great ways of working that they manage to generate leads. Some guys are naturally good sales people. Some guys attract clients because of who they are and the way they operate. Speak about Richard Mulholland, right? Like polarize the audience. You either love him or hate him, but the guys that love him kill for him. Right? You can generate leads to those people, no problem. You can sell them anything. So it's a natural ability. So probably not dissimilar to you. Give them some admin to do, and it's like, are you joking?
No, thanks.
Right? Yeah. So the point being is that not everyone has the ability to sell, and you're going, well, why don't they? And it's the same reason I'm saying, well, why don't you just do your admin? They don't want to.
But I do. So this is my point. Maybe to sum up here is that you have to, like, if you do the things that are easy in your business, your business will be hard. If you do the things that are hard, your business will be easy. Sometimes hard is selling. Sometimes hard is processes. Sometimes hard is, I don't know, but like whatever it is. But the bottom line is you have to move towards the pain. And so my thing, I actually wanted to
solve it
like
another
if
way.
you rely 100% on your network for your business, you're a fucking pussy.
That's what you're calling me then.
Yeah, you're absolute pussy.
Okay.
Because you're not prepared to do the things like that you could commercialize or grow your business faster.
Yeah, but you're asking the wrong question.
No, I'm not. It's the right question.
The question is, Spilly, do you want to grow your business bigger?
Yes.
No, I don't. Do I want to make more money? Yes.
Then that's okay.
Do I want to make more money? Yes.
You're no longer a pussy.
Okay, but so the fact is that I'm a finite resource. I only have X amount of time and energy in that time to do the work I do. So what am I looking for? I'm looking for a comfortable amount of clients that I can deal with from terms of the engagement, because it's very draining, the kind of work I do, at the highest price possible. That's all I want, right? And the reason why I do this is I look at, it's a bad example, but it's an example, is that Tony Robbins, a couple of years ago, went online and went, he's basically went, I'm a business coach. I have 8 clients. They each pay me $1 million a year retainer. Access, no delivery. So I'm going, that's the top end, right? That is the absolute top end pinnacle of business coaching. I'm going, if I was making $8 million a year with 8 clients with no deliverables, just access, they can phone me whenever they want. Okay, I'll get on a plane whenever they want. I'm going, why do you want 1,000 clients? So the kind of business that I want and the kind of life I want in parallel to the business determines whether I'm cold calling or not. So you wanna build a bigger business. You're more entrepreneurial than I am. I told you I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm a business owner. That defines the route to growing your business.
Yeah.
And every client has a different set of parameters, right?
It's
Works
true.
for you.
But you have to be honest with yourself about why you want a certain size of business.
I'm completely gun shy of hiring people. I had 400 staff.
I think you got some major trauma about that.
Huge trauma.
Yeah.
Huge trauma. So, but I know that. But I also know the fact that I can go for a run in the morning, grab a cup of coffee with my mates, have a full day, make enough money to survive, hit my 300 number, and not be completely broken at the end of the day.
I must say that is appealing, yeah. It is appealing.
But not enough.
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's appealing in the sense that I have, okay. When in your life do you have the opportunity just to drive around the US?
No,
so you either do
amazing.
that when you are very young, or when your kids leave the house, but very rarely in the middle. We're doing it in the middle with kids, taking them with.
Right.
But it's a very rare life stage or freedom to have that.
Sure.
So then the question becomes, well, do you really want to get back into the scale context? So, okay, cool. So I buy this SaaS company and then I want to try and go. It's going to take people.
Back in. Yeah.
It's going to take, I'm back in that struggle.
Yeah.
Oh shit, you start churns a bit higher than 20%.
But isn't this is the beauty of business. This is why I love what I do, right? And this is why I look at the likes of like a action coach and laugh, right? Because they're going, you come to us, we give you the 12 books. There's a couple of books, I don't know how many books there are. 12 books, the 12 stages and the 12 steps, and you will be a better business owner. And you probably will be, okay? But the complexity around who you are and what are you trying to achieve and the environment that you're in and the kind of business that you've got and your problems, not being able to sell or not doing admin, and your fear of hiring people or your ambition to tell your ex-boss, piss off and I'm going to grow a bigger business. Every single instance is absolutely unique. Every single one. There is no cookie cutter silver bullet to growing a business. There are some proven things, but what you're saying what works for you, I can put 10 clients in front of you going, they do exactly what you did, they're going to fail. Why? Because they're not you.
But I think this sums up pretty much the point, right? Which is everything we've said, someone's going to disagree with.
Sure.
Because their truth is not what our point of view is, right? Or what our experience has been. So this is why it's so important to be, humble, number one, but then open to different ideas, which is why I do the show. So I'm saying, like people who aren't prepared to move towards the pain, like to do the hard things in their business, that's always going to cause them more pain. So it's like if you do the hard thing, it's like a 10x off your. Let's talk about sales, for instance. So my belief is, or the saying maybe, or analogy is, if you want to move a mountain, how do you do that? Well, you start by moving small stones. What people do is they go, I need to make $100,000 a month or 300K or $1 million a year, whatever. So that's the mountain. So what they do is they focus on the mountain and it causes them endless anxiety. So to a point where they actually don't move as many stones as they should, or maybe they don't move any stones at all.
Right.
So what I've learned is that you can own, and then the other thing is you try and control the outcome, which is another stupid thing because you're dealing with humans. So it again adds more, trauma and anxiety to your life. You know, every entrepreneur deals with anxiety in some way, shape, or form because the only certainty is really uncertainties. But what you can control is the inputs, right? It's like how many calls can I make?
Yep.
Right? Not how much media money can I spend to get shitty quality leads. It's like, cool, I can just go directly to this guy because I know I want his money. I can get his money. So if you control the inputs, then the outcomes take care of themselves. And so the question for me is, what is the one output that I can control? Sorry, the one input that I can control that is going to create a 10x outcome at the end of it? Sales.
Yeah, no, I agree.
That's it.
No,
that's the number one thing.
So I completely agree. But okay, so the fact is some businesses aren't ready for sales because they're building product.
But then you don't have a business.
Okay, no. So you got to test it, absolutely. But what I'm saying is that there's different stages of. You have guys that have got good businesses, and what they're looking to achieve is exit, or they're looking to achieve stability or lifestyle. They don't want more sales, right? You're assuming that every business is in the phase that you're in and that's looking for sales. Now, I love that mentality. They should be, right? But it's not for everybody. And that's what I'm saying is the complexity of the space that you live in, there is no best practice. I love the word truth. You talked about I'm trying to solve the truth, right? For me, what I'm trying to do is solve business truths. Now, if you go and actually unpack what is a truth, any kind of truth, what is a truth? It's about shared experience, consistent over a period of time, that becomes the truth, right? So this is made of wood. How do we know? It's because millions of people have been planting trees and doing this and we now take it for granted as a truth that this thing is wood, okay? In business, there are certain things like wood, absolutely. If you sell versus marketing, it'll be quicker and less expensive and it'll bring in the money faster. The alternative is true too, is that if you've got more money, depending on the business, if you're an insurer and you've got to bring in 1,000 leads a day, good luck with the cold calling, right? Like you can still do it, but it's a different business. So
different context.
Yeah, or you need a call center, or you need AdWords through the roof to drive leads to your wherever it's coming to, right? So different business, different solution. But I think that what I like is I love the averages. So what you're saying is that if you do the hard work, it will be easier down the top. I agree with that. I think that's a truth. There are absolutely outliers to that. But on average, that's true. If you sell, on average, you're going to grow a bigger business faster. It's true. Okay? But guys can throw money at AdWords and grow great businesses. Great businesses. And the pro is that they don't go, but Matt's the guy that I sold me. He's the guy I want to speak to. Oh no, I saw your ad on AdWords. I don't mind who I'm speaking to. So some guys don't want to be the face of a business for a bunch of reasons. And if you're selling your business and you're the face of the business, it's a problem. Okay? So like, understand the outcome that you want. Sometimes the approach is got to be different.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest words is context, right? Because you're right in a certain context. Yep. I'm right in a certain context, and I'm also wrong. And everybody's right and wrong. And this is to your point, which I agree with entirely, which is, business is there's no one size fits all. You have to. It's so subjective. There's so many different ways to build $1 million business, and that for me is a great number, because according to the latest SBA stats in the US, if you have a business turning over $1 million a year, just $1 million, okay, you're in the top 10% of all privately owned or publicly owned businesses. So all businesses in the US, listed or otherwise, if you have $1 million business, you're in the top 10%, dude. So what the fuck's going on in the other 90%? What don't they know?
Well, there's something else that's also really interesting to me, and it's the struggle of the 1 to 3. So it's a lot of businesses can get to $1 million, but they can't take the business from a 1 to a $3 million business. And in the South African context, that's very true. I see so many businesses hovering at 10, 15, 20 million rand. They're just hovering for years. Cannot get to 50, 60, 100 million. Cannot. And
why is that?
Founder.
Nah.
More often than not, founder. More often than not. So sometimes the market's not there. I mean, I get that. But more, so policy, process, sales, marketing could be. But the founder's the guy that's going, we're not spending more money on marketing, or I don't think we should be doing sales there, or I don't think we should go to Africa, or it's the founder. He's holding back the business. So you'll find that a lot of guys get to that point, or they don't want to employ guys smarter than them. So they're not injecting new thinking into their business. They become stale. But that 1, 2, 3 thing, it's all got to do with being held back by the business owner.
Yeah, that's true. I would agree. I mean, you can only grow a business to the extent that you do.
Yep.
To your point around, are you prepared to pick up the phone or not? Well, if you're not, and you're not prepared to grow in the process of picking up that phone 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 times a day, then your business ain't going to grow. So you're only going to stay the same. But I think that what I've learned is that, again, it's context dependent, but to go from like a $1 million business to a $3 million business, so like a 15, 20 bar to a 40, 50, 60 million, requires a significant amount of capital, free capital, to grow. In other words, you're either investing it into people, and a person, human being, is either going to make you money or cost you money. And in most cases, they cost you money, because unless you're in a sales role, you're not actually making money. unless that person's involved in
Delivering.
some kind of delivery or
yeah.
systems, which is adding to your pipeline. But for us, the market was too small. Like we just, you're an Africa dude.
Yeah.
You're a
agree.
pipeline gen for tech companies. Or how many are there? Well, there's quite a few. Like we added more net new logos in the last year of COVID, this last financial year, than we did even in the boom during when COVID initially happened. But that doesn't mean that you can go to 50 million. You know what I'm saying? Like you need to have that scale.
So the market can be a problem, right?
Yeah, and the market also, by the way, was affected or influenced negatively by COVID. So it's like, well, if you need budgets, essentially, how do you get it out of a business that, isn't making doing the revenues they need to do? Because all boats rise with a rising tide, right?
Yep.
And if the tide is shite, which it is at the moment, how are you supposed to get there? It's not to say that you can't get there, but as a founder, you just go, well, fuck it. If I'm taking home, let's just say 10 million a year in salary or 5 million a year in salary, and I put my kids through private school and I'm golden, that's enough.
Yep.
It should be enough for now. But in America, like for me, the scale thing becomes just like, I'm on the ground.
So I'm a big believer that you should make the most amount of money you can with your 9 hours a day for the least amount of headache. So don't put a cap on growth, right? As long as you can make more with the same amount of effort in your 9 hours, do that, okay? For sure. Like so more and more enough's never enough. But I also don't believe in growth for growth's sake. It's not right for everybody. And sometimes businesses reach their prime where they are making good money with very little headache, and recognizing that, I'm going, you've got a good business. Like growth is going to require more time, more money, more risk. Don't do that. I'm not saying become irrelevant, but sometimes growth for growth's sake is dangerous.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's important.
Yeah.
But I think this illustrates just how little we know. So thanks everyone for sticking around.
Thank you. Yeah. How long was that?
That's an hour and a half, man.
What a pleasure. Hey?
I know, right? And I feel like we could probably go for another hour at least. Easy, right?
We didn't even talk about existential crisis. That's what I wanted to talk about.
Geez, we didn't talk about the good stuff. Yeah. But thank you everybody for sticking around. All of you who are interested in learning more about Brent, where do they go?
At Spilly, SPRLLY, everywhere. Easy to Google. Spilly.com, at Spilly on Twitter, at Spilly Instagram, Brent.Spilkin on LinkedIn.
Cool. Nice one.
Good. Thank you.
Any final words of wisdom? I know there was a lot of wisdom from your side. A lot of healthy debates.
Yeah.
Called you a pussy, so.
I'm actually traumatized by that. Even my hiring staff. Yeah.
Whatever. You have first world problems in the third world market.
My final wish is just that you are successful there, and don't forget us little people back in Africa.
Rubbish. You must come visit, man. I keep telling you, I suppose, yeah.
Come visit. You're still here. What do you mean?
You can't move there, though, right? I mean,
Not
that
yet.
would require some serious work.
100%.
But Brent, thank you once again for your time.
Thanks,
all
mate.
of you, like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you think about what we don't know. And we'll see you all